Right, hey there, and welcome to MS201, Lesson 18 on Communications and Reports. My name is Captain Silver Beatty. I'm an APMS with the University of Montana Grizzly Battalion, and I'm going to be leading you through this lesson today. Now, before we start, there's a QR code right there on your title slide. Feel free, if you can, to scan that with your phone, save that URL, send it to yourself, pull it up on a laptop or even on your phone. You're going to get a live, most updated version of this exact lesson. And depending on when you're watching this, this was recorded in October of 2024, there may be more updates that have come. So if you're watching this in later school years, go ahead and scan that. It's probably a more updated version. And as well, it also is going to have some embedded links to outside resources, which in this lesson is even more important because I have linked into 9-line medevacs, the SPOTREP, SALUTE reports, message examples, the Prowords. Everything that you need is linked into this entire presentation if you go to the website version with that QR code. Now, there's a lot of information in this. There is a practical exercise. This is a pretty tough lesson to teach to a computer screen, so I'm imagining it's probably pretty tough to learn from a computer screen as well. So just get as engaged as you can, take breaks when you need, take some notes, and utilize those additional resources that I have linked into this and the QR codes that you'll be able to use for those practical exercises. So like I said, there's going to be some additional resources linked into this. So if you were to pull up that QR code, pull up this live presentation, the URL website version, you're going to be able to see that read ahead, which is going to talk about military communications and reports. You're also going to be able to pull up an actual medevac request card, a 9-line medevac instruction card, the phonetic alphabet and common pro words, the military message examples that you're going to use for your practical, and then the military spot report or your spot rep. Those are all linked in there that have step-by-step instructions and examples. So feel free, go back, scan that code, just save that link to that website, and you can always go back to those later. So let's just jump right into this. What do I hope you can do by the end of this lesson and your time with me today? Well, I hope you're going to be able to understand some of the terminology, components, and the configurations of the radio that we use, called the SINCGAR. I also want you to be able to use the phonetic alphabet at a base level, understand numerical pronunciation, understand some procedure words or pro words, understand the idea of transmission security, call signs, the message format, and what net control station means. And then by the end of this, I'm hoping that you're going to be ready to go off and practice preparing some proper military reports, like your spot rep, a sit rep, and even the 9-line medevac. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. A couple things, the concepts, I'm going to kind of brush through very quickly because I want to get to the more important communication styles. We'll go from there. So this right here is what we call your single channel ground and airborne radio, commonly known as the SINCGAR. So this is your SINCGAR radio. These are your pieces and parts, kind of the components, if you will, that you've likely seen if you've been on an FTX and your group or your program has used SINCGARs during training exercises. So what you'll have is you'll have that receiver and transmitter with all the buttons on it. Then you've got your handset that attaches to that receiver. Then you've got your battery that goes into you, it connects into your receiver, and your antenna that takes that transmission and expands it out a little bit. And then on the bottom right, you've got that field pack. All of those components are going to fit together and fit right inside that field pack and be a nice heavy addition to whoever's stuck carrying that around, your RTO, around your training exercise area. So right there, that is just your basic components of the SINCGAR. I'm not testing you on the names of all these, but they are pretty self-explanatory. All right, so now we know what the SINCGAR looks like, we know the different components, but we need to talk some radio key terms and the definitions. And this is where things are going to get a little dry. So stick with me, stand up, stretch out a little bit, because I'm going to walk through all of these, but you are going to be responsible for going back and actually memorizing what a lot of these mean, okay? So we talk single channel. That's that mode of communication that uses one designated frequency. So for example, 55075. Now, frequency hopping, that's really talking about that radio's ability to actually hop 100 frequencies per second. And then we move into this idea of hop set, which is a group of frequency, 1,200 of them, that the radio hops on or changes frequency during the FH or frequency hopping mode of operation. So when you're in frequency hopping mode, they're using a hop set of 1200 frequencies that they regularly go through. Now, plain text is going to be data that's digital or an audio net that is unsecure, so it's not encrypted. It's easy to hack even. Whereas ciphertext, or that Charlie Tango, that data that's digital or audio net is secure. So it's loaded with what we call communication security or ComSec. And that brings us into that last one there, which are communication security is really measures and controls that are taken to deny unauthorized persons information derived from our telecommunications and ensure the authenticity of such telecommunications. Essentially, it's just locking down our stuff, making sure that the bad guys can't hack into it, make sure that they're not able to get certain information, and even the good guys that don't need to know. So that's where ComSec comes into play, or communication security. Let's move right along into cold start net hopping. Now, this is a method of opening up a frequency hopping net in which each member loads ComSec and frequency hopping data and then stands by for receipt of sync time, which is sent electronically by the NCS. I know, net control station. I know it's a lot of information. Now, the hot start net opening is a method of opening that same frequency hopping net, which the net operators load all the ComSec, frequency hopping data, and sync time from a DTD and conduct a radio check with the net control station. Honestly, I wouldn't worry about completely understanding the two differences between those two. This is just some additional information for you to understand about radio key terms, right? Then we talk about the PT or plain text receiving, so PTRX. This message will be displayed whenever you have your radio in the CT and receive a PT message. So when you're sitting there in ciphertext, but you receive a plain text message, the PTRX, that message will pop up to let you know that you've got a plain text message coming in. And then you've got no key, which will pop up. If you power up your radio in ciphertext, when there are no concept keys loaded, a no key message will be displayed, and then a ComSec alarm will actually be heard. So then you have to set ComSec to PT or loading a concept key in order to clear that alarm. This is something you need to talk to a comms officer, signal officer, or communications pro within your program. And honestly, understanding this stuff is going to take getting your hands on the SINCGAR and not me just walking you through it verbally on a slide deck. So we're going to move right past the rest of this part. Other than their net, that's when two or more radios are operating on the same frequency. Your net ID is a 3-digit number from 0 to 999 that designates specific nets within a given TSK. So let's say Foxtrot 174. Your net time, that's needed to sync your frequency hopping communications. It should be expressed as hour, minute, minute, second, and each station on the frequency hopping radio net must be within plus or minus 4 seconds in order to communicate. And then the last thing that you might want to learn about just a little bit more is your 2-digit or Julian date. SINCGARs use this 2-digit variation of your standard Julian date calendar. So feel free to look into that to learn a little bit more. But again, not expected to completely understand and be a pro on your SINCGAR radio today. What I really want to get into is understanding things like your phonetic alphabet and your alphanumerics. So in order to avoid confusion or any errors during transmission, we have special procedures that have been developed to pronounce our letters and our numerals. Now, the phonetic alphabet has to be used to transmit individual letters of the alphabet, code groups, or even to spell difficult or unfamiliar words. So think of things like you've probably heard Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. That's your phonetic alphabet. Now, we don't use that to spell out every single word that we're communicating on radio. Like it says, individual letters of the alphabet, maybe code groups, and then anytime it's just like an unfamiliar spelling or a non-common way of spelling something, then you would actually use your phonetic alphabet to spell that word out. Now, why do we have a phonetic alphabet? The reason that all of these, you'll notice none of these rhyme. So none of this way that we say this alphabet actually rhymes. And that's so that when we're talking over a radio, sometimes it can sound staticky, it's not very clear, and we don't want to mix up letters or numbers. So we use this phonetic way of doing things to make sure that it's very clear to the receiver what we're trying to say. So I'm going to read through all of these so you can actually hear them, but then I want you to practice on your own as well. But I'm going to say these correctly one at a time, and just listen, and then maybe even repeat after me if you have time. So we're going to go with Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, India, Juliet, Kilo, Lima, Mike, November, Oscar, Papa, Quebec, Romeo, Sierra, Tango, Uniform, Victor, Whiskey, X-ray, Yankee, Zulu. So there's all 26 letters phonetically said. You can rewind that, listen to me again, or just keep practicing on your own. Some of them you might say, that sounded kind of weird, that's not how I use it. Oscar and Victor. Typically, most people will say Oscar or Victor. And then India. Make sure you say that correctly. But for the most part, you should be hearing these about that same way that I just said it. So now let's move out of the phonetics into our common prowords. So prowords, that's short for procedure words. We use those to aid our radio operators and to keep transmission time to an absolute minimum. So they have to be committed to memory, and you have to use them verbatim. Now, a complete understanding of the prowords and their meaning is absolutely essential for the expeditious handling of radio traffic. So you'll see when I pull some up, you'll see what we say that proword, it is actually short for something much longer, and it keeps us off the radio. These are some common prowords. This is not all of them, but these are the ones that you should probably learn very quickly. So we've got break. Now you can see there's a definition or a meaning next to each of these prowords that'll tell you what it actually means. So if you hear break, that's the same thing as the speaker saying, I indicate the separation of the text from other portions of the message. So you're saying break, you're trying to separate all this text. Let's say you hear the word correction. That's also the same thing as them saying there's an error in this transmission. The transmission will continue with the last word correctly transmitted. We have say again. This is them saying repeat all of your last transmission. And it's followed by identification data means like repeat this portion indicated. You can say I say again, which means I'm repeating transmission or this part that's indicated. You can say I spell. I'm going to spell this next word out phonetically. So that kind of lets them know that they're about to hear a phonetic spelling of something. Now, a couple of these get mixed up quite a bit. Out means this is the end of my transmission to you. I do not require any kind of answer. This is it. Ends, you don't have to respond. However, over means this is the end of my transmission, but I need you to respond, so go ahead. Those are the differences between out and over. We never use over and out at the same time because they actually mean two different things. Roger, that's probably something you hear very common. That's something that it's naturally part of our vocabulary once we're in the Army. And that just means I've received your last transmission satisfactorily. I understand what you're saying. And then, of course, this is means this transmission is from the station whose designator, whatever you're about to say, immediately follows. So this is Grizz 6, which would be this is the commander of the Grizz company, something along those lines. So you always start with this is so that they know who they're speaking to. Now, when it comes to those call signs, we just ended on call signs are used by different units to identify each station in a radio net. So those call signs consist of like a letter, number, letter, which represents the unit, a 2-digit suffix that represents the position with the unit, and sometimes it'll have a single letter expander that further identifies the position, but not all call signs have that expander. You've probably seen it used in ROTC as something like Grizz 41 Alpha. That would be Grizz, maybe the 4th platoon, 1st squad, Alpha team leader. So Grizz 41 Alpha is how that would be broken down. I'll give you this kind of confusing slide to take a look at. But what I actually want you to pull out of this more than anything is to look and notice that sometimes those suffixes on the right, so in this example here, these suffixes really do typically stick where they're supposed to. Like the commander is usually 6. And then in a lot of units, things like your first sergeant would be 7. Your medic might be 8. So these will change. This is just an example. But these will change depending on the unit, depending on the size of the unit, the breakdown of the unit. But this is what it's talking about with the suffixes and then additional expanders. So a pilot's expander would end with papa. The RTO, which you probably hear in ROTC, has the suffix or the expander of Romeo at the end. So in this one, you've got the X-ray tree, right? X-ray 3. Hotel 28, which would be your chaplain. And then alpha means the aide or the assistant. So this right here becomes the chaplain's assistant. So the X-ray tree is the unit call sign. Okay. All right. Let's move into how message formats look. If you've listened to our written communication class, you understand that all military communications, to include radio and telephone reports, they consist of 3 main parts. Sounds just like an essay or even an email. We've got our heading, body, and conclusion. So even our radio reports on how we send things over the radio should still have your heading, which is the administrative portion of whatever format you're using, the body, which is going to contain the information that the sender really wants the addressee or the receiver to know, and then the conclusion has the message authentication or that ending of out, right? It should end with out because that means there's no more acknowledgement or talking needed. So for that example there, to send a formatted voice message, operators first need to fill in the appropriate blanks of the required message templates, whatever that is, whether you're using a 9-line medevac, a salute, sit rep, spot rep, you have to fill in the right blanks before you can even start reading it, and then you read it over the radio. So here you've got some examples on standard message format. So you've got Hotel 99, this is Hotel 01, and then you've got your message type or priority, over. Then Hotel 01 would say, Hotel 01, this is Hotel 99, send your message over. Hotel 01 is going to say, Hotel 99, this is Hotel 01, give the message, and then say, over. Hotel 99 is going to say, Hotel 01, this is Hotel 99, roger, over. And it's going to conclude with, Hotel 99, this is Hotel 01, roger, out. This is the end of the message right here. So this is your standard message format. The introduction, who it is, who you're speaking to, and who you are. And this, you'll notice between every line, they're kind of confirming that it's still the same person talking to each other. So this is the initial introduction. Send your message over, kind of confirmation, we're ready for your message. 01 then sends that message. Then we get the confirmation that the message was received. Then we get the acknowledgement and the closing, the conclusion right here. Now in a radio check format, that's very, very simple. Hotel 99, this is Hotel 01, radio check, over. And 99 is going to say, Hotel 01, this is Hotel 99, roger, out. Roger, received your mission satisfactorily, no response is required. Where here, the message is, I'm doing a radio check, I need you to respond, and that's exactly what happens here. Now, a place that you can find some different formats outside of the resources that I've already included in this lesson would be FM6-99, or once you get to a unit, you should have some proper formats within your own tactical SOP or your standard operating procedures. So just keep that in mind. This right here is just another sample message that you could utilize to practice with. So just take a look at that, maybe pause here and you could read through it. It's just a sample message, gives you an idea of how long some of these can be, but what it should look like and what the cadence should sound like. So if you're on the URL version of this, you have it pulled up on your phone, you can actually click this SPOTREP format and it's going to open up, and I'll show you here in just a moment. It'll actually open up a document where you could scroll through and read a little bit more about it. So you'd click right here, and you'll see that it's actually going to pull this open right here on how to prepare a SPOTREP. It'll explain all the different pieces and parts to it, how you should number things, how your lines should be formatted, what you should include in each line, all the way down to your line 11 of your authentication. Then you can practice here doing a SPOTREP to your next higher element. So this right here is from FM6-99. And this is what it should look like on your card. This is a shortened, condensed version of a SPOTREP, whereas this is the line-by-line explanation of what it should include. Now, why is that important? Because we're going to break it into a salute report as well, which you've probably actually heard within your own program. If not, you will in the near future, I'm sure. But a salute report is broken down to your size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment of whatever you're looking at there. So typically of the enemy. This is considered a report that needs to be sent up right away, or at least as soon as you have this information available to you. So size of your enemy, the activity of what they're doing, the exact location, the unit or uniform they're wearing, the time that you witnessed this, and the equipment that they have. So we would say in a message, so-and-so, this is so-and-so, salute report follows. They'd respond back, confirming that they heard you, go ahead, send it, and then you would be sending this information. So this is just another example of a military report, and this is one that's typically used pretty commonly in ROTC. So let's move into a practical exercise. I do encourage you to actually do these things. There's QR codes that'll take you to like this right here. It'll bring this up for you on another tab. I do encourage you to use this because you need to get used to using these words, pronouncing them correctly, and using them correctly on the radio. I can't tell you one of my biggest pet peeves as a cadre member is hearing mispronunciations of our phonetic alphabet and our numerals. And so when you pull this up, it'll actually walk you through how to say the different numerals as well. And then it also has some pro words on there. So you can practice those and start to understand what they mean. In fact, there's more pro words on this document than there were in this slide. So you could learn a few more as well. So take a few minutes, go ahead and pause here, scan that code, pull it up, and just work through, say them out loud, especially if you're by yourself. I know it probably feels funny, or pull it up and have it ready to practice with some friends. So you can either click on this right here if you're using the slide deck, or scan this. All right, so I hope you actually worked through that practical exercise because it was going to help you move into this portion of the practical exercise. And this is one that I truly, truly want you to actually do because it's just more practice and more reps, getting as much experience as you possibly can with doing radio messages and sending them properly. So with this practical exercise, same thing. You can scan that code. It's going to take you to the scenario, take you to some additional information and instructions, or you can click on that click here button right here. It'll also take you. What you're going to do is, the whole point of this is to be able to send a proper voice message. You're going to be given all the necessary information. The message should be transmitted, frequency, call signs for sender and receiver. The net is in the clear, so you do not have to encrypt this. Now the point of this, what you're going to do is send a voice radio message using the correct radio procedures, correct pro words, and the correct phonetic alphabet and numbers within 3 minutes. So as you remember from before, the whole point with these message formats is to be able to fill in the blanks before you start speaking. So you need to know this information before you start speaking. So again, you can either click right here or you can scan this QR code. It'll take you to the instructions and you can go from there. So take a few minutes, pause here, and get some practice in. The emphasis really here is to just use proper pronunciation and then identify the information that you need to complete that report. It's not necessarily a huge evaluation on exactly how you conduct that report. All right, so here's the information that you'll need. Don't worry about frequencies or anything like that, just the call signs that are right there and the quick message. It's a very basic message. Practice sending it. Use those message format examples on that from that QR code and go from there. Now let's move into practical exercise number 3. Now this one is kind of just taking that next step of difficulty, and you're going to prepare a spot rep in the form of a salute report. So the spot rep, and I want you to use that salute format. Now with this, you're going to provide all the necessary information that you'll receive on the next slide. And if you pull up, either click there or pull up that QR code, this time it's going to give you kind of that salute format, spot rep format, so you can follow that along and see what you need to do, what you need to pull, and where you need to put it. So take a couple of minutes to pull that up, and then you're going to pause on the next screen, which will give you the information you need to collect and create this salute report. Right now, I really do encourage you, try it out with the salute format, and if that feels too easy, move on and do the full 11-line spot report. There is some pretty intricate information, but if you follow those directions there that's linked on this slide, if you follow those will tell you line by line exactly what you need to have. So on this next slide, go ahead and pause it and read through this information and go from there. All right, so now that you've wrapped those up, I do recommend that you take your answers, if you've jotted them down, take them to a cadre member or somebody else that could kind of give you some feedback on whether you got everything that you needed or if there was additional information that you either added or needed to add, and get just as much practice as you possibly can, because the more you practice on these, the more confident you're going to be on the backside when you actually have to send a radio report either for an evaluation or during a lab. Maybe you get pinned as the RTO. It's going to be important to feel as confident as possible when you're sending those reports. So with that, let's close this up. It's a lot of information. Again, it's another one of those lessons that you just have to go out and get all of the practice in that you can. But now I hope you feel a little bit more confident in the terminology, those components, and the different configurations of the SINCGAR radio, including the frequency hopping, hop set, ciphertext, plain text. Again, I don't expect you to have all those memorized or understand specifically what they all mean until you get your hands on a SINCGAR and can start playing with those different things more frequently. Now, I also hope that you're a little more familiar with that phonetic alphabet, the numerical pronunciations just by looking over that handout, some of those procedure words, the transmission security, call signs, message format, and how that net control station works. Again, that's just going to take a lot of practice to feel super confident in what you know. And then preparing those proper military reports. You did a spot rep. Now you need to go forward and ask for some scenarios that you could create a situation report out of. And the next big step is learning how to develop the 9-line medevac. Now, that's not something that's taught here. We do talk about that in that intermediate first aid course, but you'll probably do it more during a lab. Or if you're part of a Ranger Challenge team, if you have one at your school, you'll do a lot of 9-line medevac requests. But get with somebody, get that 9-line medevac card out that is attached to this presentation and get some practice in. This isn't something that can just be taught over a screen. So get that, find somebody, work back and forth with each other, get that confidence built up. If you have any other questions, please reach out to your primary instructor or advisor first. Find an MS3 or an MS4 that can work through with you, maybe a classmate that's starting to pick stuff up a little bit faster. But if all else fails, please feel free to reach out to me in the comments, or you can feel free to email me though I may or may not still be attached to an ROTC unit, depending on when you're watching this. But my email is silver.beatty, B-E-A-T-Y, or Bravo Echo Alpha Tango Yankee, at mso.umt.edu. All right, thanks for sticking with me through this one. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you on the next video.